I would just kind of like look at my toddlers while they were running around the house screaming, thinking like, what on earth am I doing? But your children live with you 18 years of your life. That's it. I knew that I was okay making less money for a period of time and being able to be with my daughters and be able to be with my husband.
Hey there, I'm Goli Kalkaran, and this is Lessons from a Quitter, where we believe that it's never too late to start over. No matter how much time or money you've spent getting to where you are, if ultimately you are not happy, then it's time to get out. If you're feeling stuck and you feel like there's gotta be more, there's gotta be a way to feel fulfilled and excited about what you do, then this is the podcast for you. Each week, I will sit down with an inspiring guest who quit their professional career in order to forge their own path and create a life that they love. Hey guys, thanks again for joining us. I know you have a lot of choices, and it means a lot to me that you're here. We're going to jump into the episode, but another quick reminder, if you haven't already joined our email list, go to the website, sign up. We'll be starting our newsletter shortly that will give you motivational videos, tools, resources that can help you with motivation, how to overcome fear, how to figure out what it is you should be doing, and much more. So sign up at lessonsfromaquitter.com or follow along at Facebook and Instagram at Lessons from a Quitter. And now let's jump into the episode today. I am so excited to have Laurie Rowen on the show. Laurie received her law degree from USD Law in 2004 and went on to have a successful career as a litigator at the prestigious law firm of Snell and Wilmer. After having her first daughter, Laurie quit her job to work as a freelance attorney on her own schedule. Her decision coincided with the market crash of 2008, and Laurie realized that there was a huge opportunity to make freelance legal work more accessible. With her business partner, Laurie co-founded Montage Legal Group, a nationwide network of experienced freelance lawyers who work remotely on a project basis for law firms that need help with overflow and specialty areas of law. Montage Legal Group has been featured in numerous publications, including the ABA Journal and Forbes.com. And Laurie has received numerous awards, including the National Association of Women Business Owners Entrepreneur to Watch and OC Metro Magazine's 40 Under 40. Today, we got to talk to Laurie about how she disrupted a profession that is resistant to change, how she scaled a business with no experience, and how to start looking for your next jump before quitting your career. Hi, Laurie. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I was so excited to hear that you started a podcast called Lessons from a Quitter. My friends have always joked that I am a quitter. I quit my law firm to start something. I quit Girl Scouts and started my own little nonprofit club, and I am the ultimate quitter. Your podcast makes me official. I'm really excited.
Oh my God, I love that. I can't tell you how happy that makes me. I feel like I'm the ultimate quitter too, and I started this podcast to legitimize that and make myself feel better. So I think that's great. I think everybody should quit things that make them unhappy.
Yes, thank you for making Quitters a legitimate group.
Quitters unite. Okay, so
yes.
We will get into a lot of that stuff, and I would love to kind of get to how you quit law to start Montage Legal Group. But before we get to that, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into the law and a little bit about the beginning of your career?
Sure. So I was attending UCLA in the year 2000, and I had just finished my year abroad in Sevilla, Spain, and I lived in Okinawa, Japan for a summer. And I didn't really know what I was going to do after college. I wanted to be a teacher, which is why I was a psychology major, but I was sort of floundering. And that summer, I went to go stay with my aunt, who is a lawyer in Santa Barbara. And she brought me into a courtroom. She showed me her law firm. And it was literally that moment that I thought, you know what? Why don't I try law school? And I went to the store and bought an LSAT book and came back to college, took the LSAT, went straight to law school after college. So it was basically my aunt that served as a mentor to me that helped me get into law.
Oh, okay. Interesting. And when you were in law, like when you started going to law school or when you first were practicing, was it something where you felt like, oh, I really like this? Or was there times where you kind of had doubts of like, maybe this isn't right for me?
You know, I liked law school. I'm pretty good at school. I can take tests, hear some information, spit it back to the teachers. So I did well in law school. So I ended up doing the on-campus interviewing, and I was lucky enough to get a job through that. So I said, okay, let's do that. And I ended up at Snell and Wilmer in Orange County in their product liability group as a summer associate, and then ultimately took a job there. And so I liked it, but there was always a little bit of doubt in my mind the whole time as to whether this was going to be what I do for the rest of my life. But I loved Snell and Wilmer. I was in a busy trial group. I always joke that I was the lucky one to get picked for a trial to be the young associate on a trial almost every single year when I was there. So I was traveling and busy in trials. So it was a very stressful first few years at the firm. But again, it was a great group full of a majority of women in my actual practice group. So it was as good as I could have had it at a law firm.
For people that don't know, Snell Wilmer is one of the bigger national law firms. And when you say, I mean, I love that you call it the lucky ones, but when you were in a trial every year, I mean, typically how much were you working?
I was billing a lot of hours. I think there were years where I was annualized at 2,600 hours, which in real people land, it's hard to explain. I mean, that's 50, 80 hours a week at times when you're in trial because you just work all the time. And I got married my third year there, and it was just kind of a whirlwind. I don't even really remember a lot of the wedding planning because I was so busy and stressed out. So it's being in a large law firm is difficult. And I even had a really great, more mellow one, and it was still pretty stressful.
Okay, so you're there for a couple of years. How did you go from that to thinking about starting Montage Legal Group?
Okay, a part of me knew, even day one, kind of the first, second year, I knew that I wasn't going to be one of those people who went on the partnership track and stayed there forever. I think some people are meant for that, and I'm so grateful that some women actually do that. I was just a little stressed out girl, and I knew it wasn't going to be right for me. So I ended up getting pregnant really young. So I got pregnant when I was 27 and had my first daughter at 28. So during my pregnancy is when I really started thinking about these things and said, am I going to really do this with a baby? I remember being 6 months pregnant in a trial with a female partner who was 8 months pregnant and then an older senior partner. And it was just crazy. And I said, I can't do this when the baby's here. So I thought a little bit about contract work because my mentor, Laura, had left the firm to do contract work, which for non-lawyers, it's basically hourly work you do from home. And I kind of thought that's something I could do. But I did go back to Snell and Wilmer after having my daughter, Brooke, for a little bit, but ultimately quit September of 2008. And if people remember, September 2008 was one of the worst economies ever. Right. It was that month actually was when all over the news, it was banks were failing, everything was crashing, right. Stock market crashing. And I remember sitting there holding my baby with my husband, like watching the news. And he was just kind of wide-eyed. And I know he was thinking like, wow, this is great. My wife left her high-paying job to stay home and do this contract work thing, making what, $50, $100 an hour here and there. I knew he was really freaked out. Mm-hmm. So I said, you know what? Don't worry. This is going to work out. I'm going to work. So that's where the idea really came from. It was kind of out of necessity. Right. I really at that time would have liked to be a stay-at-home mom, but it was not something my family could afford. So this kind of forced me into really charging with this contract work.
So you were doing contract work yourself was it for your firm or for other firms? How would you find the work?
It was a couple of my contacts from Snell and Wilmer connected me to friends, and they were for small law firms around Orange County. So I was doing contract work for about 4 different law firms. And during my pregnancy, I had been talking to Erin Gelia, who is my current business partner. We got pregnant at the exact same time, and our babies were actually born 16 days apart. And so I knew she was stressed out. She already had a son, a toddler at the time. And so we had talked, hey, let's do this together. Let's do contract work. We can help each other out. Let's see how this goes. after she had her daughter, she ultimately decided to stay at the firm for another year and was still having a harder time quitting. But when I started doing contract work and I started getting really busy where I was turning down work from a firm, that's when I called her and said, hey, I think this is working. You got to come do this. And so she said, great, let's do it. And then so she left the firm. And in 2010 is when we really created the plan of Montage, the idea that there has to be other similarly situated women who have already quit firms. Maybe they weren't working because they were relying on their husband's income, but due to the recession, they had to work. Maybe there were women who were getting laid off. Layoffs were happening all over Big Law at the time. So we knew there had to be other women who would want to do this with us. So we thought together and created the name Montage, which a montage really means bringing together separate elements to create an art form. And our idea was, let's bring together multiple women with different legal specialties. We'll band together and we'll create this one solid network where law firms can come to if they need help. So that was our idea. And we started like almost instantly. Resumes started coming in from a group of former Latham and Watkins lawyers that had already left but wanted to work. And these high-level lawyers, Harvard Law graduates, started coming to us. And we got some press. We were really lucky to get some press early on. And it just kind of steamrolled. And it worked. And we brought on lawyers. And we now have 200 to 300 freelance lawyers, men and women throughout the nation.
That's incredible.
So it's been great.
You know, just to backtrack, at that time, like right now, there's a lot of these freelance type companies that coordinate lawyers and do it. Back then, there really wasn't. So this was a new idea to create a company where you guys bring on other lawyers and are helping law firms with work, and then you're sort of responsible for staffing those cases, right?
Yeah. So in 2009, 2010, it was embarrassing to be a contract lawyer.
Right.
There were a couple contract staffing firms, but those were like, you get paid $25 an hour and it was doc review. We were the first who said, let's get these big law lawyers that are actually have had careers in law firms. And we did have to face a little bit of that negative connotation. Hey, contract lawyers, those are low level. We're different. And so we did face a little bit of that, but we were lucky in 2011, the ABA Journal randomly called us to do a feature story on us. They kind of listed it as the fact that we created the term freelance lawyer. And so the word freelance lawyer allowed us to distinguish ourselves from these contract lawyers. And so I think it helped with both sides. Big law lawyers were now not embarrassed. And then law firms said, oh, I wouldn't use a contract lawyer. That's not good for my clients. But, oh, my clients would love me to use a former Big Law, Harvard Law graduate who can actually help the cases. So we were lucky during that time. Changing the word to freelance, I believe, allowed us to set ourselves apart. And you're right. Now we've seen multiple companies start. A lot of times they apply to our company, and unfortunately, we can only take about 5% of the lawyers. We wish we could take 10,000. So a lot of them ultimately start their own business, and a lot have actually closed down in the past several years. We're not sure why it didn't work for them. It's working great for us, but there's still a lot of companies now this alternative way to practice, this virtual type law is really working in 2018, but it wasn't back in 2009.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really the interesting part of the story for me is that you sort of saw, the trend before it came, where this disruption in the legal profession, where people were unhappy with the current status quo, like working at a law firm for a ton of hours, especially women, especially mothers who kind of wanted a little more flexibility and be able to work on their own time and be able to not, have more time with family. And to be able to see that and say like, hey, there should be another way. I think a lot of times people in these traditional fields are very resistant to disruption or a new model. And so I think it's really cool that you guys saw this need and we're like, hey, we're going to give this a shot. Clearly we're like this and we know there's other women like this. So let's see what happens.
And you're right. Law is not a flexible profession. This was not done. People want to do the same thing that they have always done in law firms. So we were a weird group. We were unique, but obviously we're happy that it worked out. And I do believe that, like I mentioned a little bit, the recession helped. The timing was right because women were unhappy. It was harder for them to go part-time and make partner, but men also were getting laid off from firms, starting their own solo practices. They couldn't do it on their own. They didn't have 200, 300 grand to hire an associate. They had to use us. It was a necessary period of time. And so we had these people wanting to work, and we had these small law firms needing really good help. And so the timing was right. And we know, joke, of course, if Aaron and I hadn't gotten pregnant at the exact same time, wouldn't have worked out either. But we are just grateful. We think the timing was right, and we pushed forward, and we were able to change a lot of lawyers' view of alternative ways to practice.
So just to get to like the nuts and bolts a little bit, did either of you guys have any experience running a business? Like, how did you guys know how to set this up, or how to approach law firms, and how to create the structure that you have?
Oh my gosh, no. We had absolutely no training. I read probably 10 business books. How to start a business, nuts and bolts, how to do it. And so I wrote a business plan because all the books said you had to have a business plan, and Aaron kind of reviewed it and, made revisions. And I actually made the website myself. My dad helped me, and I got QuickBooks, and I just sort of taught myself. We did everything ourselves up until even a few years ago. We just sort of believed, hey, we're smart lawyers. If we can be a lawyer, we can run a business. And luckily it worked out. But man, we didn't have the business training. We also figured out marketing because, again, with timing, this was when Facebook was kind of just starting, or when people were really starting to use Facebook. And so people would share articles about us on Facebook and social media. So it was free advertising. We didn't have to invest any money, and word of mouth helped a lot. And so we just sort of figured things out as we went.
How does it typically work with you? As a law firm comes to you and then you put it out to your group of attorneys and whoever can, or do you guys have to specifically find, like a law firm says, I want 5 lawyers, and you have to find 5 lawyers to staff for that case?
So Aaron and I divide things separately. Aaron does the project coordination side, and I do the finance side. And then, of course, together we run the big picture business side. But yeah, it's pretty simple. A law firm comes to us. Maybe they're a repeat client. They used us a year ago. Maybe they're new, and they go, hey, I have a really complex demur, and it deals with trade secret issues. Who do you have that has hardcore experience with trade secret issues? So we'll email our group. We'll find the best fit for that firm. We'll see who's free, and then send some bios to the firm. And then that firm will say yes or no, and then they're connected. And then we are sort of that middleman billing agent where we do the billing, we do the collections, we do all of that type of stuff. So
we were just talking about lawyers being a very rigid kind of traditional field. And I think one of the things lawyers always worry about and law firms worry about is all these ethical issues and ethics violations. So did you guys have a hard time figuring out how to navigate like the ethical rules within law and doing this kind of freelance work?
In the beginning, we didn't know much about it. The only thing I knew about ethics when I started was what I learned from our professional responsibility class in law school and studying for the bar. Honestly, that was
Right.
all I'd ever dealt with. So there's a lot of ethical issues that come into play when you do contract work, when it's a lawyer to lawyer work. So people would ask questions, we would research it, and we slowly found all the authority we needed. And then we ended up writing an article. I can't remember which year, maybe 2012, writing an article and getting it published in the Recorder, law.com, about all the ethical issues that come into play. Everything from fee splitting to unauthorized practice of law. And so we just really had to learn it. And now I believe like I know so much more about ethics than I ever really wanted to know. But we give CLEs on the ethical issues. Because even firms that don't use Montage Legal Group, they a lot of times use their solo practitioner friends. They work back and forth. There's of-counsel relationships, and the state bar has a lot of regulations on what you need to do and what you need to comply with to make sure you're, just complying with all the rules you need to comply with.
Moving away from the actual business aspect of it, just like the personal side, when you were doing this, when you guys were starting, you and Aaron, were there times where you were kind of thinking like, what are we doing? Like, how did we get ourselves into this? Like, we don't know how to run a business.
I never regretted my decision to leave my firm. I never said, why'd I do this? But I mean, I had a baby at age 28 and 29, two tiny little girls. And at that time, I was very involved with a nonprofit board. I happened to be the president of the board of WHW. So I was overwhelmed. And yeah, I would just kind of like look at my toddlers while they were running around the house screaming, thinking like, what on earth am I doing? But I never, again, regretted my decision. I wanted to be there with my children. You know, we live 100 years. You're with your children live with you 18 years of your life. That's it. I knew that I was okay making less money for a period of time and being able to be with my daughters and be able to be with my husband. So I was always happy, even just making $100 here and there. I was grateful that I was actually bringing in any money to help our family out.
I think a lot of people relate to that. I mean, so many of us are torn when we have children, because obviously when you have kids, you want to be with them, and the practice of law is not the best at respecting kind of your own personal time and family time. And so a lot of people, I think, start making that change once they have kids because your priorities shift.
Yeah. Erin and I came from different vibes with the whole stay-at-home mom issue. You know, I grew up with a stay-at-home mom. I wanted to be there with my kids. I felt guilt about not being there. She had the flip side. She is from Wellesley. She believes women should never quit. That is the worst thing a woman should do. You should rise to be a partner, should be a CEO. So interestingly, we combined the desire to be a stay-at-home mom with her vibe of women shouldn't quit work. And we kind of meshed it together. So we enabled the women who really wanted to work because they needed that to be able to work. And the women who said, I want to be a stay-at-home mom, sort of, we allowed them to work. And also with the stay-at-home mom issue, a lot of women quit, you know, in let's say 2000, to completely quit, but always said, oh, I'll go back to work. It's almost impossible. The law is not a profession that lets you just hop back in a law firm after a decade. So we found a lot of women wanted to relaunch their legal careers. Their kids were now, you know, in middle school, and they thought, I want to go be a lawyer. So they used Montage to slowly work their way back into it. And so that, you know, there's another way that helped the stay-at-home mom group, you know, work. So
yeah, I love that. I love how you guys are helping so many people create a different type of space in law as opposed to just the traditional couple of paths that they allow, you know, that people think they have. I mean, you guys have created a completely different niche for people, which is awesome.
Yeah, and I keep mentioning the stay-at-home moms. We have so many men now. And the first 5 years was mainly women. Now I would say 50% of the applications to Montage are men, and they're doing this for a variety of reasons. Same idea, to get flexibility as a mom would like, but they're, you know, owners of startups. They're general counsels of small companies. They own their own law firm. We have people who own woodworking businesses, restaurants, various companies, but they don't want to leave law altogether. What if their other venture doesn't work out? They need to make money on the side doing freelance work and not forget how to be a lawyer. So tons of men want this. Tons of women want this.
Yeah. And I think that that's actually even in line with what we're doing on this podcast. I think a lot of people that are trying to figure out a way out of their traditional path, whether it's lawyers or not right now with the internet, freelancing is such a huge thing. And I think this is such a great example of what you can do while you're trying to figure out what else you want to do, where you may not have the time to do that when you're working a traditional 9-to-5 job.
That's exactly right.
Going back to you and Erin, you know, when I talk to different people that have started businesses, you know, I hear a lot that working with a partner is sort of like a marriage. And a lot of times that can be the source of a lot of problems. And unfortunately, a lot of times that's like the downfall of a lot of businesses. How have you guys been able to make that work at Montage for 10 years, 9-10 years?
Yeah, I do not know. Erin and I talk about this all the time. We truly have the best relationship. We are so different in our personalities and the way we operate. We always come to the same conclusion after kind of going back and forth. And we have no idea. We have watched over the past 10 years, because we work for small law firms. I mean, I would say sometimes we think it's 80% of partnerships fail. They just constantly fail. There's disputes over money and clients and drama. And I don't know why, we just don't have issues. We joke, we have found the magical unicorn of relationships. It should be a fantasy,
That's
but it
wonderful.
works for us. Yeah, but it's just luck. I wouldn't actually recommend that many people try to find a partner when doing this. I would recommend they find someone else doing something similar, running a business, to be more of an accountability partner. Meet up on Mondays, help each other out, refer business, but not join finances and not join life together.
Maybe one of the reasons you guys work is you were saying you seem to have a very clear delineation of what you guys do. Like she does one part of the business and you do another, which I think could be helpful when people are doing partnerships because a lot of times it's like stepping on each other's toes or dropping balls because you don't know who's doing what.
Exactly. The first few years, there was a little bit of that. So when an email comes in to info@Montage Legal, it goes to Erin and it goes to me. So the first few years, we didn't decide who would respond. I'd respond, she'd respond at the same time, and we're like, how embarrassing, let's be professional. So we, both of our phone numbers were all over the place. So it took a couple years for us to be like, you do that, I'll do this. Mm-hmm. We have 100% trust for each other. She knows there's 100% chance I'm going to do the finances properly. And I know for 100% chance she will respond to new clients, coordinate projects. So maybe we just completely trust each other.
Right.
And that's what has to work. Because if you start worrying that the other person's not doing enough work or not acting ethically, that's when problems start.
I love your story. I mean, I think that what you guys have built is incredible. I think the scale with which you've done in this last 10 years is really something people can learn from. One of the issues that we talk about here, and I think you maybe could relate, is a lot of us don't have like a side passion that's like, oh, I want to start a business in this. So while people want to do something else, they don't know where to start that. So I don't know if you have any books or advice that you could give people.
Yeah, I always say we have one life to live. We have one chance to be a parent to our kids for 18 years, then they're out of the house. It's becoming more real now that my daughters are 8 and 10. I have 8 more years with one of them and 10 more years with the other one. Mm-hmm. It's crazy. So if a career isn't fulfilling or causes extreme stress, there's no reason to stay for the rest of your life. But that said, we need to make a living. We live in Orange County or California or wherever in the US. Quitting a job because you just don't like it is risky. And it's not always the best decision. So it's tough, but I'd recommend try to stay in your full-time job as long as you can. Try to do something on the side. Research different things to do. Talk to multiple people. If you have an idea, try to start it while you're still employed, while you still have an income. And that'll make you way more comfortable because you have money coming in. And then you'll know when's the right time to actually launch. Working with NAWBO, which is National Association of Women Business Owners, I've seen women with the best service ever or the best product, one that is the best idea that everyone needs. But for some reason, there's a disconnect and people don't know they need it or whatever the reason, and these companies fail. And so sometimes it seems like it's really easy to start a business. It's tough. So if you're not fulfilled in a job and you have to leave, maybe start with looking at it in a different career where you can get something really constant if you need the income, and then slowly researching and slowly going about starting the business.
I agree wholeheartedly. And I think if the sooner you can start even thinking about stuff on the side while you're at your job, thinking about what you would want to do and narrowing down in what other field or what kind of business or what kind of career you would want over the years, that can help you figure out what it is you want to do next before you make that huge jump.
And talking to people is so useful. Yes. Asking for connections, like, do you know anyone who would go to coffee with me? Mm-hmm. Those kind of things allow you to kind of find out if you might think a certain career is a certain way. I mean, man, look what people think lawyers are like. We're on TV and court and trial, dancing around. I mean, it's really basically sitting at a desk, taking a final exam and writing a paper every day, all day. That's kind of what it's like. But people don't know that. So yeah, I think people should talk to other people to get advice. And you mentioned books. I personally love the book, 21 Days of Resilience by Dr. Zilana Momini. It's a book about how to be resilient. And you need this in life as a parent, as a spouse, and certainly as a business owner. You need to be able to bounce back without freaking out, getting depressed, all of that. So this book has kind of 21 ways that you can practice and incorporate in your life. And I really focus on this book, and I try to pick certain months and pick a resilient quality, a trait, whether it's gratitude or emotional intelligence, and kind of learn about it and focus to make sure I can be as resilient as I need, because businesses are tough. So I think that would be a great book for people.
That's great. I will link to that in the show notes. Well, Laurie, I can't thank you enough. I think this has been super helpful. Where can people find you if they want to reach out or if they want to see what Montage Legal Group is doing?
Sure. Our website is www.montagelegal.com, and our information's on there, but you can email me at Laurie, Laurie, at montagelegal.com. And our numbers are on there, and I'm happy to chat with anybody if they have questions or need some advice.
That's very kind of you. Thank you so much for being here today, Laurie. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Good luck with this podcast. I'm so excited for Lessons from a Quitter. I'm going to listen to all of them.
You're so sweet. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening. I can't tell you how much it means to me. If you liked the podcast, please rate and review us on iTunes. It'll help other people find the show. If you want to connect or reach out, follow along on Instagram and Facebook at Lessons from a Quitter, and on Twitter at Quitter Podcast. I would love to hear from you guys, and I'll see you on the next episode.